glass, or the main lamp that would split from the bottom.
Just how the red and the white, just the whole
Yes.
stripe.
The one that's labeled fire hose.
Good afternoon, church. It is a gift to be together. Amen? My name is Reverend Eric Guerra. I am the host pastor here at Los Altos United Methodist Church, and I welcome you, and I welcome those who are worshiping with us online as we celebrate and remember the life of Reverend Dr. Jerry Larson. You are a witness to the blessing, to the love, to the faith of this beloved man. And we are grateful for your presence with us and for those who are worshiping with us online. A quick reminder to turn off your smart devices or not so smart devices. I mean, Jesus might call us at some point today, but maybe we should answer in different ways. Also, should you need anything, we here at Los Altos want to make sure that you feel at home. Please do not hesitate to ask an usher if you need assistance in any way, as we are here to be the community celebrating, remembering, and grieving together. I'd like to invite Reverend Andy Maddock, who was an associate with Pastor Jerry here at Los Altos, to offer us some words of grace as we begin our time of worship today.
Thank you, Pastor. It's good to be with you. I thought it was hot when I came in, and I was wrong. I thought the heaviness I felt was grief, and I was wrong. Turned out it was just memories, thick as can be. Memories of all of you in the front row and my time here. Memories of sharing a cup of ice cream with Jerry in my first year here. We shared ice cream together, and he said, "Now, before I go much further, I want to make sure that I'm the kind of senior pastor that you wouldn't mind working with and for." Spent 6 years working with Jerry in this place, doing Christmas, doing Easter, walking up and down the aisles. I was here for his retirement, and like that day, I came this morning, not in denim, although I was tempted, but in the Parson Larson formal line of a dark suit with a blue shirt and a tie. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. Next month, my daughter Madeline will celebrate her 21st birthday after Jerry stood right there and baptized her in this place while I served with him. Friends, receive these words. In dying, Christ destroyed our death. In his resurrection, he restores our life. It is our affirmation that Christ will come again in glory. And so in baptism, we put on Christ. Jerry puts on Christ. And so in Christ, in his passing, he's clothed in glory. Here now for this time this afternoon, friends, we are God's children in this place. What shall be of our story? What shall be made of our lives? What shall be made of our deaths has not yet been revealed. But we know and we affirm that as Christ appears in and to us today, tomorrow, and all the tomorrows until the last one, that we will be like him. Those who have this hope put on Christ. Your words of grace. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and I am the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, yet shall they live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never truly die. For I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore. And I hold to those keys to death and the fear of it therein. Because I live, you also shall live." And so, friends, fellow clergy, laity of this church and the lives that Jerry's touched, we gather here in this place to praise God and to witness to our faith as we celebrate the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Jerry Larson. We come together in grief, acknowledging our human loss. We ask that God would grant us grace, that in pain we might find comfort, in our sorrow we might know hope, and yes, even today in the face of death, we might come to see and know resurrection. We're going to sing together. We couldn't do Jerry's life without it. The songs are those that you will maybe have come to have learned from him, maybe on that very auto harp. The first one was certainly my introduction to a voice that has shaped my life and ministry for the last 2 decades, with Jerry's passion for the Dr. Howard Thurman. Friends of Jerry, Jim and Gene Strafty, set music to his words, and that became I Am the Light of the World. We owe it to Jerry to sing out together. You can remain seated, but let's sing our faith. I am the light of the world. Amen. I'm sure that the very talented and gifted people behind me will share many of Jerry's secrets, and I look forward to that time. One of them is his childhood nickname was Tank, and that's one of the ways I referred to him around the office, and I think y'all did Tank good proud there, and I'm grateful for it. Would you join me in a moment of prayer? Holy God, who gave us birth, you are ever more ready to hear our prayers than we are at times ready to pray. You know our needs before we even speak them, and you know our ignorance when we ask. So give to us now your grace, that as we shrink before the mystery of death, we may see the light of eternity. Speak to us once more. That solemn message, that song you sing of life and of death and of new life and rebirth. Help us to live as those who are prepared to die. And when our days here are accomplished, enable us to die as those who go forth to live, so that living or dying, our life might ever be in you. And we might know with the utmost certainty that nothing in life or in death will ever separate us from your great love in Jesus Christ. This we pray. Amen. Piece of special music for you. It'll come from the pen of Harry Chapin. Those of you that had come to learn of the Cotton Patch Gospel under Jerry's teaching, that's the same musical creator of that piece. So we hear Circle.
A circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around.
All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. The season's spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
It seems like I've been here before, but I can't remember when. But I got this funny feeling that we'll all be together again.
No straight lines make up my life, and all my roads have bends. There's no clear-cut beginning, and no dead ends.
Well, I've found you 1,000 times. I guess you've done the same.
But then we lose each other. It's just like a children's game.
As I find you here again, a thought runs through my mind.
Our love is like a circle. Let's go round one more time.
All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around.
All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. The years keep rolling by. Years keep rolling by.
A reading from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. A reading from 1 John. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?"
Jerry Eugene Larson was born March 30th, 1944, to Howard and Nell Larson in Burlington, North Carolina. Jerry's older brother Jim was 2 years old when Jerry joined the family. Howard was a soldier in World War II and missed some of his son's early years. To Jerry, Dad was a photo on the wall. It was a difficult adjustment to have Dad come through the door as a walking, talking grown-up. The next jolt to Jerry's system was when his brother Larry arrived. Mom suddenly disappeared and Aunt Lil was in charge. He called her Mama Lil until the original Mama returned with a baby in her arms. Finally, when Larry grew up enough to join in the fun and games, there were now 3 boys in the family. The first home Jerry recalled living in was in the small town of Altamaha. He could walk to school located on the other side of the Haw River and play in the woods behind the family home. He shared many stories of the adventures he had with his brothers and neighbor kids. It sounded like a fun place to live. Howard worked for a knitting mill in Altamaha, and in 1956 was asked to start a finishing plant in the city of San Fernando, California. This was another unexpected and disturbing issue for Jerry. His dad did some fast talking to convince the family that this was going to be a good thing for them. Nell was from a large farming family. California was a long way away. Howard reminded Jerry about the really big telescope in Palomar, California, where he was sure he could find a job when he was old enough. That went a long way to ease the anxiety about the move. The family packed in the car and did some sightseeing on their cross-country trip. San Fernando was definitely different from Altamaha. Jerry was 12 years old, had a thick Southern accent, and was shy around new people. Attending San Fernando Junior High was like being thrown into the water without a life vest. However, he adjusted, weathered the teasing about the way he pronounced words, and made some friends. His family started attending San Fernando First Methodist Church. Howard, Jim, and Jerry volunteered to sing at the Sunday evening services. The boys got involved with the youth groups, and the family soon became active members of the congregation. Brother Bill was born in 1961. His presence was a delight to the whole family and luckily carried on the singing tradition of the family. Jerry faithfully attended Mrs. Young's Sunday school class, joined the St. John Youth Choir, and met with the MYF on Sunday evenings. When he became a part of the college age group, where his interest and talent for teaching started to bloom, after no other adult stepped up to teach the class, Jerry filled the void. He brought his slide projector and lesson plans to meetings, and that group became a source of great discussions, lasting friendships, and even some marriages. He also volunteered to be a counselor for the junior high MYF, as well as worked as the custodian and gardener for the church. He was a well-known and appreciated member of the church. The finishing shop for the knitting mill did not survive in San Fernando, and so Howard used his salesmanship skills to raise enough money to open a men's clothing store in downtown San Fernando. It was a thriving business for a few years. Jerry and Jim worked in the store. And it was where Jerry and Linda, who was working during the Christmas holidays as the gift wrapper, finally got to know each other. They started dating, and after some starts and stops, they were married in 1968. Jerry graduated from San Fernando State College with a BA degree in sociology, began seminary in 1967, and graduated in 1972 with a Doctor of Religion degree. He was ordained a deacon in 1970 and an elder in 1974. Jerry worked as the youth director at the South Pasadena Methodist Church and moved to the same position at Crescenta Valley Methodist Church in 1969. He was then moved to Central Avenue Methodist Church in Glendale, merged two small congregations in Glendale to form the Wesley Methodist Church, was appointed to West Anaheim, then to Westwood UMC, and to his last appointment at Los Altos United Methodist Church in Long Beach, where he served as the associate minister and then the lead pastor. He was active in conference-level committees related to communications and education. He assisted in documenting the annual conference sessions using various types of media. His interest in media for educational purposes grew, and combined with his teaching skills resulted in requests to travel to other churches and participate in various community events. He and his friend, John Akavian, created a multimedia presentation based on the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Maybe some of you all had a chance to experience that. They were invited to share their presentation to many groups throughout Southern California. Jerry's love of music, his ability to recall even short sections of music, and interest in photography came together in creative ways to teach many subjects and introduce ideas to a variety of ages. He was on the cutting edge of multimedia used for educational purposes. His love of science entered into the ways he set up Sunday school classrooms to give children opportunities to learn by experience and be involved in the education process. He played the auto harp and sang with the children during worship services and in classrooms. He did his best to make learning fun and participatory. The sermons he gave and worship experiences he planned were education-centered. Jerry is father to 3 children, Sarah, Nathan, and Jacob. He is grandpa to 7 wonderful children and adults. Jerry retired in 2011, but continued to teach Sunday school and sing with preschoolers, assist families in sad and happy occasions, and shared travel experiences until his health issues became barriers too large to overcome. I'd like to invite his best friend, the Reverend Terry Bouchard, to come forward and share more.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we are. 12 years ago, we gathered in this place to celebrate Jerry's transition from active ministry to retired status as a member of the California Pacific Annual Conference. It seems like it was only yesterday. It was a day filled with fond memories, good stories, good food, lots of laughter, and of course, music. Jerry's granddaughters sang one of his favorite songs, which we just heard from Noah and Bill. Thank you. Circle. I know he was touched by that gift of music and the love that was behind it, and so was everyone else that day. Thank you. We gather today, albeit with heavy hearts, to commemorate his transition from that which is mortal to that which is immortal and eternal. As Erica read, Jerry and I first met at San Fernando Valley State College in the early 60s. He was attending San Fernando Methodist. I was in Sepulveda Methodist. And that was a great start for our friendship because we both really connected as part of that college ministry. After graduation, we attended different theological seminaries. Jerry went off to Claremont. I went to Garrett back in Evanston, Illinois. But later, as we both graduated from seminaries, we came back to the Southern California area and weren't able to reconnect with one another. You've heard about Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I know all too much about it because I would volunteer to help Jerry go to these different venues and help set up and take down all the projectors and the screens. I saw more Jonathan than I really ever wanted to see. It was very rudimentary, but it was groundbreaking. A few screens, projectors, but technology advanced and so did Jerry's ability to grow with the times. He was, if not the first, one of the first preachers to combine teaching and preaching as part of his sermon. And that style, by the way, has become very prevalent in Methodist seminaries and Methodist churches these days. But no one has done it more creatively and more effectively than Jerry. Jerry and I were roommates for 35 years at the United Methodist Annual Conference at Redlands University. Those were fun times, a chance to get away from the problems of the local church, relax, reconnect with colleagues, gossip about appointments, and yes, to sneak off for a while to catch a movie or two for the purpose of getting sermonic material, of course. Earlier this year, there was a movie called Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Some of you may have seen that. It won lots of awards, including Best Picture of the Year. I have no idea why. It was controversial, complex, and confusing right down. It was weird. But as I was sitting there in that movie by myself, watching the credits roll, I could not help but think of Jerry, because he had a way of dissecting or getting beneath what was really going on to explain what was happening. And I knew that at some point I would be asking him questions, and he would make it very, very crystal clear what the movie was all about. He was very insightful. He had the gift of insight, not just about movies, but also about life and people. Jerry was an avid LA Dodger baseball fan, so one anniversary he bought tickets to a Dodger game where he and Linda bought matching Dodger jackets. Now that's true love. Hopefully the Dodgers won. Jerry was first and foremost an educator. He influenced so many lives in his 40 years of ministry, from the oldest to the youngest and everyone in between. He modeled not just through his words, but through his life, the power and beauty of a Christ-centered life. Obviously, children had a special place in his world. Their joy and innocence and playfulness brought him so much joy in return, probably because he still had a lot of little boy still in him. Whenever there was occasion where I was struggling with a personal problem or a conflict or a vocational crisis, I knew I could call Jerry and kind of vent on him, and we'd talk and get together, and somehow he would help me to find ways that I could look maybe at a third choice of how we can deal with an issue. Jerry was warm, kind, empathetic, generous, humble, funny, and caring. Everything you could ask for in a close friend. We knew each other for 58 years. We had a great friendship. We cared deeply about one another, and I miss him very much. Every Christmas, we would get a Christmas letter from Jerry and Linda. I'm not sure who did it, but probably Linda. Probably Linda. And there was always news about what all the children and grandchildren were doing. And always the recommendations for a couple of books or a couple of movies that they had seen. I always like to look at the picture because it started off a few, and over the years it continued to grow and grow and grow. And I looked at the smiles on all of the faces of those people in that picture. And Sarah, to Sarah, Nathan, and Jacob, and to all the granddaughters. You know better than anyone else how much Jerry loved you and how proud he was of you, of who you are, and of who you are becoming. Linda, you are one of the strongest women that I know. And the two of you had a partnership that was grounded in a deep and abiding love and mutual respect for one another. Thank you for being there for Jerry and for your family. Please know that you are loved and valued by so many people. Just look around. This sanctuary is full this morning. And my wish and prayer for each of you is that the love and laughter and joy that has bound all of you together over the years will provide you the comfort and strength to move forward in your lives with the assurance that death is not the final word, because our faith, Easter faith, assures that the best is yet to be. I got to thinking about how I was going to end this, and I thought, why not give Jerry the last word in spirit? And I'm thinking, what would he say to all of us here this morning? And then I thought about the Apostle Paul, who near the end of his life writes to his friend Timothy, talking about running the race, having the faith, about life. And I think that's what Jerry would say to us, but I'm going to look at it from a different point. I want to share what I think Jerry would say to us. And I'm reading from the Message Bible in contemporary English. He might say something like this: keep your eyes on what you are doing. Accept the hard times along with the good. Keep the message alive. Do a thorough job as God's servant. You take over. This is the only race worth running. I've run hard to the finish, believed all the way, and all that's left now is shouting God's applause. Thanks be to God for the gift of Jerry's life. Applause, indeed. And now there are some folks who are going to share some words of remembrance.
Well, I think I was probably one of the luckiest little boys in San Fernando, California, born into the family of Larry and Jerry and Jim. And there was a 12-year difference between me and Larry, so I had kind of ruled the roost because they were either at college or graduate school or, so I ruled the roost. At least I thought I did. But the best thing about hanging out with Jerry is because he made you feel important. He made you feel like you knew stuff that you had no idea what he was talking about. And he did it in the most gentle yet challenging way that anyone could. My husband and I, see, we're Lutherans now, and the choir director at our church in Charlotte, we were having a conversation at one point, and I mentioned Jerry Larson. This guy is from the East Coast. He's well known in musical church music. And, I know Jerry Larson. Well, at least I know of him. I have his book. Jerry touched everybody. He touched me. When in the summer times, my mom and dad didn't know what to do with me because I was much younger. So it was Jerry and Linda for a couple weeks. It was Jan and Larry for a couple weeks. And then if I was really lucky, I got to go to San Luis Obispo because that's where Jim lived. And we got to go to the beach, and that was fun. I would come and spend the time with Linda and Jerry, and I could tell part of the time they didn't quite know what to do with me because I wasn't somebody who was going to go out and play much in the way of sports. I liked movies, I liked TV, I liked to eat a lot. And Jerry would say, let's go get a Slurpee. And I loved that time with Jerry Larson. He would go into the 7-Eleven, I guess that's what it was, 7-Eleven, right? And come out with a red Slurpee. And I thought I was the king of the world. So, Linda, I know it's hard without him, but think how much better that we all are because we were a part of his life and he was a part of ours.
I'm John Avakian. Jerry and I were good friends through high school and mostly into college, a little bit beyond. We met at San Fernando First Methodist Church before the Methodists became united with the Brethrens. We came together because we had a commitment to the church, but we also loved music. And at one point, we were singing in 2, maybe 3 groups together, including at the church and a community group that we loved dearly that was out in the San Fernando Valley. We also, he would help. We volunteered with different projects around the church. At his retirement, I know I mentioned one of his real gifts when we were doing a volunteer work. It would be 10, 15 or something like that. And we, the guys that were working on whatever the project was, would, it was time to take a break. And Jerry's gift was in being able to say, break! And everybody heard Jerry, and we would all go out and he taught me that you could make a Dr. Pepper just about out of an orange soda and, oh dear, maybe it was Coke. I don't remember. I shouldn't have gone off on that tangent. Anyway, you've heard a little bit about Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I've learned this lesson a couple of times. He and I, Jerry brought the book to me about 1971. He said this book about a gull. And he was a bird that wanted to fly faster and more perfect than any gull had ever done. Jerry proposed a multimedia show. I was into sound, and I liked taking pictures, and pretty soon we were taking tons of pictures of seagulls to put in this show. We had recorded the narration, and we even spent one summer, 3 or 4 days on a state beach called Montana de Oro near Morro Bay. That was about the time, I think, Sarah, you were probably a year old, maybe a little more, and Linda was taking care of you. Jerry and I were on location. It was very cool. And of course, back in those days when you took pictures, you took a bunch of pictures, you generated these couple of rolls or whatever, and then you had to wait. There was this delay until you got them back and you found out how many were really useless. But it was still an awesome time. Some of you may have contributed pictures over the several years that Jerry and I put on the show, with a little bit of help also. And it was a very special time for me working with Jerry. Jerry was a little nerdy. He had some very fascinating knowledge bases. Of course, there was astronomy, but music was the one that I so respected. As we began talking about this presentation and the idea of music to go along with the narration of the story, Jerry knew the finale of Ravel's Concerto for Left Hand would be perfect in one spot. He knew where to find simple gifts that we've already heard today in Copland's Appalachian Spring to go in another section. He knew how one passage in Handel's Water Music would be a perfect illustration of gulls flying. Anyway, he had just a remarkable depth of knowledge of music that was quite something. I would like to share a couple of quotes, and it won't be easy. I'll do my best. But as Jonathan practiced to become a better seagull, he wanted to fly. He wanted to fly faster and more perfect than any gull had ever flown. Jonathan gradually, as he practiced, became moving into a strange, kind of distant place. So he, as an instructor, had become close friends with another gull named Fletcher. So at one point, here's some quotes. "What are we trying to practice every day, Fletch? If our friendship depends on things like space and time, we've destroyed our own brotherhood. But overcome space, and all we have left is here. Overcome time, and all we have left is now. And in the middle of here and now, don't you think we might see each other now and again?" A little bit later, a moment later, Jonathan's body wavered in the air, shimmered, and began to go transparent. "Don't let them spread silly rumors about me or make me a god, okay, Fletch? I'm a seagull. I like to fly, maybe. And don't be dismayed by goodbyes. A farewell is necessary before you can meet again. And meeting again after moments or lifetimes is certain for those who are friends." Okay, got through those. This one, this is fascinating. All of this stuff from this book 40 years, 50 years ago. It's on the altar, but we don't worship it, but it is a way of just saying some beautiful things that touch people. This is for Linda. A soulmate is someone with locks that fit our keys, and keys to fit our locks. When we feel safe enough to open the locks, our trusted selves step out, and we can be completely and honestly who we are. We can be loved for who we are and not who we pretend to be. Each unveils the best part of the other. No matter what else goes wrong around us, with that one person, we are safe in our own paradise. That was Jerry and Linda for sure. I have one more quote, and this one's harder than the last, but I need to share it because this does describe so much about Jerry. This is from The Velveteen Rabbit. And some of you I know that book. It was written in the 20s, a lovely story about a little stuffed rabbit who was loved until he just pretty much wore out. So he's talking to his friend, a horse that was in the nursery that had been loved so hard that his fur was worn off, the hairs in his tail had been plucked to make little bead necklaces and like that. So this horse had been around a long time. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery heater before Nana, the nurse, came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you're made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, because he was very truthful. "When you were real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up, or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who are carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly except to people who don't understand." Jerry, my friend Jerry, was very real. Thank you.
Put my glasses on so then you all are blurry. It's no big deal. First of all, Linda, it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I appreciate you. I look at people from Westwood, and I see shadows of images of what I remember from years ago. So you guys are really old. And I see some of you have kids that look like you used to look like. So that was just an aside. I moved to Los Angeles 50 years ago from North Carolina, where I go back. I'm living in North Carolina now.
So 50 years ago, this country boy comes, and my wife Ellen chose to check out Westwood United Methodist Church because it had a large parking lot. So she went for a while, and eventually she made me try playing volleyball at Westwood. And so I did. And after about a month, we were playing one night, and Rick Beeman hurt his knee. So I, along with this other guy that I didn't know, took him to UCLA ER. While we were sitting there, the other guy sat in awkward silence. After about 20 minutes, and I'm an engineer, so I don't really mind awkward silence, I thought I would make a move towards interaction. I asked the other guy where he worked. He said he was a minister at Westwood. So that was a good start. A month or two later, Ellen made me go to Regan Penny's house for a picnic. Somehow that same guy and I got to be sitting together on the ground behind the garage, stuffing our faces, which is the best part of a picnic. And I'm thinking religion and stuff. In my early years, I attended Catholic catechism in New Hampshire and hellfire and brimstone revivals in rural North Carolina. And I really became a holy roller. But high school and college were effective antidotes. So he asked me about going to church and invited me, and I basically told him that I thought it was kind of stupid stuff, and most of the people who went to church were hypocrites. And he sat there, and then he looked at me and he said, well, you know, they're just trying to be better people. And that was like George Foreman hit me in the jaw. I was stunned, for the thought and idea came to me that maybe, possibly, I could become a better person. He nailed me. We became great friends. We loved volleyball, mountains, movies, sports, books, music, history, North Carolina travel, theology, especially photography. He loved making slideshows, and so did I. He was better than me at everything except sports. So I considered us equals. We spent a lot of time together at church, at MYF, Sunday school. He gave me great advice when I was thinking about getting married again. He was probably the all-around smartest, wisest, generous, most loving person I know. He became one of my best lifelong friends and pals, and I miss him. Now, you're going to have to bear with me for a minute, because I'm going to try and tell you some of the things that I learned from Jerry. And it might sound like a sermon, but I don't mean it like that. I think this is something I use in my life every day. Religion, the word, is based on the Latin word for ligaments. Religion, the activity, is being bound together, connected, covenant relationship. Whenever I think about religion, he taught me the foundation of this thought is about relationships. That's not always what you get in church when you think about religion. Religion becomes embodied in something else, and the relationship part of it gets lost. Relationships are the most important thing in life, and because of Jerry, I learned that everything is about relationships. That's number one. Number two, I learned that belief has definitions with regard to religions and life. Two definitions. And unless you're on your game, you can get them mixed up. The first definition of belief talks about if-then statements and equations that lead to conclusions that are set in stone in your head and you have to follow. If you're on your game, what belief is really about is what you give your heart to. Jerry taught me that. It really doesn't matter what you think in your brain, it's what you feel in your heart. And somehow we need to harmonize our heads and our heart's belief. And because of Jerry, I learned that we need to use our heart's belief to adjust our head's belief to match our heart. Third thing that I learned because of Jerry is that heaven is at hand. Heaven is now. Our lives today are filled with beauty and wonder and majesty. And this wonder is on the macro level universe and on the micro level people interactions, that sort of thing. Every day, every moment, no matter what our situation is, we're in heaven. Because of Jerry, I learned that our souls should constantly be singing. Thank you, Jerry, for these basics. They affect me every day and have changed my life so I can become a better hypocrite. Over the last 10 years or so, it's been a struggle for Jerry and Linda. And Jerry wrote about how the brain works, and he had deterioration of body and brain, and his brain struggled. And it's been hard on Linda and the family for at least 10 years and more. If you've ever read the poem "Breathing Underwater" by Carol Balick, you can see what happens when the water level rises, and basically you're underwater. And when you're underwater, it's hard. And it's hard to remember about all these other things, relationships and beliefs and heaven. But Jerry taught me that that's the time that you need to know that. Jerry spoke at my wife Ellen's memorial service in North Carolina in 1993. Before the service, Jerry saw one of Ellen's quilts in the house. And at the service, he talked about Ellen being a quilt maker and connecting squares together, and how that was a metaphor for her life and her relationships. Well, Jerry is a quilt maker, extraordinary. And I see a lot of the quilts in his quilt. I can see us awkwardly sitting together at the UCLA ER. I see us in the hot tub at Ken and Betty's house after Bible study. I see us on balloon rides. I see my wives Ellen and Linda and our family in his quilt. I see beach parties with friends. I see a black-haired goth teenage daughter. And I see this same teenage daughter become the backbone of the family. I see us going to Top Gun. I see Jake going 1,000 miles an hour on a skateboard. And I see Nathan hitting a volleyball 1,000 miles an hour, and you better duck. I see his moms, his dads, his brothers, grandchildren, grandparents, friends. I see us when we took the MYF up in the High Sierra Meadow and watched the Perseid meteor shower on a perfect night at 12,000 feet. I see Jerry was part of Charlie Purpose's quilt when others weren't. I see the Larsons and Maloney's walking to 7-Eleven on Saturday nights for slushies, enjoying big city life. I see many squares of Friday night volleyball. That was my version of Friday Night Lights. I see the squares that were with your family, with you during hospice, and the pictures of you around Jerry. I see all of us here today. Each square captures a moment to live in eternity. Because of Jerry, I say each square of this quilt captures the love and the respect of his relationships and reflects purely his heart's beliefs and celebrates his profound sense of heavenly wonder. Jerry's quilt harmonizes with the universe of other quilts that are being stitched, connected, linked, tied, bound, and joined together. And that is such joy. Jerry, I love being your friend. I'm glad we went together to the UCLA ER. Rick's knee was okay. and the parking lot is history. I'll close with a very short prayer. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul. Amen.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Diab. I'm Miriam Diab's mother, and she was ill today and could not make it, but she had what she wanted to say written out, and Linda asked if I would read it for her. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's all I'm going to do. So I thank you for the honor of being here, Linda, Sarah, Nathan, Jacob, and all your family, and to the brothers that I'm just now meeting. This is from Miriam, and I begin. While thinking on what I wanted to say today, this quote from Maya Angelou came to mind. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Miriam goes on to say, I will never forget how Jerry made me, as a youth in the church, feel seen and heard, and like I belonged. I think he was able to do this in part because it was who he was. He was kind, he was a good listener, and generous with his laughter. But for me, it was also about the things he did and said. He used his interest in music, photography, and film to make faith and spirit accessible and open to talking about God and religion in a way that invited questions. And he didn't claim to have all the answers. There is a specific conversation I had with him about 35 years ago that I want to share, as it has stayed with me my entire life and greatly influenced my faith. I was around 13 years old, taking confirmation classes and preparing to become a member of the church. My family and I had been attending LAUMC for 5 years, and Jerry was a somewhat new associate minister. He was the confirmation class leader and the middle and high school youth pastor. Now, as an elementary age child and before Jerry's arrival, I didn't mind going to church, but aside from donuts at the middle hour, I don't remember it being something I necessarily enjoyed or looked forward to. However, as an adolescent exploring her identity and desperately needing a place to belong, youth fellowship and classes with Jerry were a highlight of my week. As confirmation classes were coming to an end, I found myself struggling with the biblical account of the resurrection. Too many things just didn't add up for my ever-questioning brain. This questioning made me wonder if it was okay for me to become a member of the church. With everything that we had learned in Sunday school, the resurrection seemed like kind of a big deal. My mom encouraged me to talk to Jerry about my concerns. He listened carefully. And then he asked me 2 questions. The first, did I believe in the teachings of Jesus? The second, did I want to, and would I follow the teachings of Jesus? After I answered yes to both, Jerry said, "Then there is a place for you here." And there was. I remained an active member of LAUMC until I graduated from high school and moved away for college. I have fond memories of traveling with Jerry and other youth to Northern California and Hawaii for service projects and being encouraged to build community and then to further explore my faith during deep discussions on Sunday nights in the pit. Jerry made it possible for me and others to have these experiences by creating a welcoming space of love and spirit to grow. I will forever be grateful for this feeling. But I also hope that we all remember and share his words with others. There is a place for you here.
It's hard to articulate the impact of a special person. We, the children, grandchildren, and wife of Jerry, wish to share how thankful we are to have had him in our lives and his impact on us. We hope that all this was relayed while he was here, but saying it out loud helps us with our healing. We put together thoughts, lessons, and prayers of thanks for our bigger-than-life dad, grandpa, father-in-law, and husband.
This segment is from Linda, Jerry's wife. Jerry was 12 years old when I first saw him at the First Methodist Church of San Fernando. He looked like he was on a mission every time I saw him. Head down, walking purposefully. He was usually quiet, and so when he had something to say, I paid attention because it was usually something worth hearing. When we started dating in college, in our college days, we shared his interests in movies, astronomy, music, and books. I was hooked. He was interesting, thoughtful, rode a fun Honda motor scooter, and drove funky cars. Our just shy of 55 years of marriage are filled with Jerry's stories that bring tears of laughter and sadness. He was my teacher in many ways and will always be held dear to me. You, Jerry, will always be a part of me.
This segment is from Sarah, his daughter. Dad, you clearly gave me all the basics, such as life and a good start at it. The thing is, you gave me so much more. You went above and beyond. I don't think there's one life crisis or life-altering decision I have made so far without your counsel. Meetings at Sizzler, in your office, or on the phone, you showed up, left your judgment at the door, and guided me. I hope I have absorbed enough of your wisdom to support me through the rest of my journey and share it with those I love. Thank you for teaching me kindness, empathy, how to rise up in conflict and pain while reminding me that this too will pass. Thank you for teaching me how to make a paper airplane, sharing your love of music, and for encouraging me to be the best person, or to be the best version of myself. I miss you. I love you so much, but you are here. I know the spiritual energy surrounding us is now brighter and stronger with your love. Thank you for being my dad.
This segment is from Nathan, Jerry's son. My dad was a great influence on me in many ways. He didn't have a mean bone in his body, always looking to communicate in a way that both sides felt heard. Having a dad so intelligent, kind, and thoughtful was with taste that was rad. I was asked a lot, what's it like being a PK, preacher's kid? I loved it, having a church to run through, skateboarding in the parking lot, and lots of kids my age. I started playing volleyball at church. Things I'll never forget that my dad taught me include how to play catch with a baseball while listening to the Dodgers on his battery-powered AM/FM radio, getting me out of school, probably in about 4th grade, at 10 a.m. to get through Return of the Jedi at noon. He taught me God is another word for love. Feeling love, showing love, love is having God, love is in your heart. For my mom's birthday or my Mother's Day, he always took us to Love's barbecue in LA, which spells it right out. That's always awesome. He loved us, he cherished us, and he cherished us, and Love's Barbecue is where he took us and my mom to show us that love. I loved it, pun intended. He was my biggest music influence when I was a teenager. My dad also had a funny side some might not know, like using his ring finger to flick me off when I was being a smartass. He told me if I ever have a chance to go to the moon or keep my family, he told me he would go to the moon. Whether I believed him or not never mattered. I knew he loved all of us. My sister and I stayed home sick one day with Dad watching us. My sister and I were fighting all morning until my dad came down the hallway, twisting up a towel and giving my sister and me a major rat tail on the bum. I remember backpacking in for at least 6 miles to a lake, my dad trying to reactivate his batteries using a pot of water and a camping stove burner. Yes, they exploded in his face. My dad loved and cared for all of us, all of his students, old and young. He was a great teacher and the best dad ever. Getting up at 4 a.m. to watch the space shuttle launching, whether it launched or not, didn't matter. It was just time with Dad, teaching me ideology, sociology, theology, and even technology. I loved it. He never made people fear sin, and I love that. God is love, and so is my dad. My dad is love.
This segment is from Jacob, his son. My dad was a very introspective person, probably more than he let on. He trained himself to develop some extroversive abilities, like his oratory and teaching skills, but his obsession with finding as much truth within himself and without was his natural state. I really got lucky to be able to speak with him a lot during those times. Usually late at night, after he's finished up with the usual work, when he's looking through his new Scientific American magazine or reading the latest news from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Most of the time I had some impossible theoretical question in my mind, which he would then turn into a Socratic session of him asking me questions to ultimately find what I was looking for within myself. That is precisely why he was such a good teacher. There were no fish to be simply given, only tools provided to help find your own way. He was also deeply empathetic. Talking to him about your troubles was so easy to do. He listened intently, asked more questions, listened some more, and did this until he felt that he had an idea where you were coming from. The point is, he took his time to understand what you were trying to convey, because that's how much it meant to him to do so. I will miss him more than I can ever comprehend yet. He was formidable in the good things that developed in myself. I can only hope and pray that I leave the same legacy for my son.
This segment is from Helena, Jerry's granddaughter. My grandfather is truly a man to look up to. He helped shape my father into the loving and caring man that he is. My best memories of Grandpa are sitting on the steps at church before Sunday school and looking up at him. I always looked at him in awe, playing his auto harp with the regal robe. I appreciate his constant reminder that you are lovable and you are capable, no matter how old I was, and he always knew right when I needed it to hear it. I have always felt so lucky that he is my grandpa.
This segment is from Shay, his granddaughter. If you know me, you know I love the moon. There is something about it, shining so bright in the night, even if it's just a sliver. I've loved from a young age. When we were little, Grandpa would set up the telescope on the front lawn, and we would look at the moon in all its glory. We would talk. He would teach us about space, like how the stars in the sky don't change each night. Some may die out, but we can still see them because of the way light travels. I never knew what it was about the moon that I was drawn to, but I like to think it comes from those nights out on the lawn and the connection it gives me to him. Thank you, Grandpa, for sharing your love with me so that I can now share it with others.
This segment is from Devin, Jerry's granddaughter. My grandpa has taught me so many things that have impacted my life and molded me into who I am today. My grandfather taught me how to express kindness and empathy amongst many other things. A core memory that comes up when I think of him is from one of our annual trips with Grandma and Shay. We were all walking to get some food when Grandpa started to fall behind. I stopped and waited for him, saying, "Grandpa, you're walking alone. Can I walk and talk with you?" Grandpa responded, "Devin, you have a big heart and show so much empathy." At the time, I didn't know the meaning of empathy, but Grandpa filled me in while encouraging me to keep up the good work. From the moment forward, I have often thought about the conversation, and it inspires me to not just feel bad or sad for kindness. Just through stories to my friends about Grandpa, people know his true kindness and love without even meeting him. Life will never be the same without him, but I feel at peace knowing he is out there and back to his true, authentic self.
This segment is from me, his grandson. Grandpa, I believe that there's a presence of God in everybody, but not many people show it. You have shown that presence more than anyone I've ever known. And I'm sure that many of you would agree. I remember the days when I was in preschool, and I would brag to people that Pastor Jerry was my grandfather. Even today, I still brag that you are my grandfather. I'm going to miss the stories you used to tell me about your grandfather, or your childhood. You always used to give me advice on life and my faith journey. You have guided me in my path to Christianity and Methodism. You never let me down when it came to a question. I could have asked what was the meaning of life, and you would have had an answer. I could never have asked for a better pastor, friend, or grandfather. Thank you.
This segment is from myself, Justin, Jerry's grandson. To my grandfather, Jerry Larson, I will always appreciate your religious and scientific mind. Many people believe you have to pick a side, but they both come together very well. Ultimately, the point of each is to understand our world better and have a reason to keep living. I will admit that I don't know everything about my grandpa, but because of all the sit-downs and deep conversations we've had, I have to say he's one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. Very passionate about astronomy and religion. It's a force that seems to bring people together. At least I know I was very interested in what he had to say. Even after his stroke, he still had passion for what some would say is his purpose in life. And to my grandma Linda, who is always taking care of him throughout all this, all I have to say is bless your soul for being such a kind and loving person. Like I said earlier, I don't know everything about my grandpa, but on my 18th birthday, I received the best present a family member could ever receive. It was a book of letters from my grandparents on my dad's side of my family, full of stories that I'll cherish forever. One in particular stuck out to me. It was how my grandpa grew up. In Grandpa's early years, he hadn't met his dad, but there was a photo of him on the wall in his house. My great-grandpa was busy fighting during World War II. When he was finally returned home, my grandfather didn't welcome his father back. He was struggling to put two and two together, mainly that his father was not just a photo, but an actual person. I don't think I'll ever forget that story, and I'm excited to read about future ones to come in the book of letters. Thank you.
This segment is from Oliver, his grandson. My grandpa was a really nice grandpa. I loved playing board games with him and asking him questions about the universe. He was also very kind and nice to people. My grandpa was a superhero, and his superpower was love.
This segment is from Dan, Jerry's son-in-law. There are an endless amount of words that describe Jerry. One word that best describes him, for me, is generous. Jerry was generous with his kindness, generous with his love, generous with his faith and knowledge, and especially generous with his time. Jerry touched a countless number of lives in many different ways over the years, including mine. Jerry had a very calming effect on me and was always easy and interesting to talk to. I am forever grateful for the great conversations, for his sermons I experienced. Most of all, I am thankful for the time I got to spend with him. I will always miss him, but I am peace knowing that Jerry will always be a part of my life.
This segment is from Rosa, his daughter-in-law. The songs, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, and We Shall Overcome perfectly express what Jerry has meant to me. He encouraged thinking about what we learn from our experiences, to be hopeful and active in moving forward with environmental and civil rights issues.
This final segment is from Kristen, Jerry's daughter-in-law. I love talking with Jerry about old movies. I remember one conversation in particular where we were laughing and discussing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He was trying to remember the name of the actors in the film, and I knew who he was thinking of, so I said it was Burl Ives. He was very impressed that I knew who Burl Ives was, and not only that, but showed him a wonderful children's album the actor had made, which Jerry thought was great. It was always nice talking with Jerry about any topic, but especially movies because he'd seen more movies than anyone I've ever known. Whenever I watch Cat on a Tin Roof now, I'll think of Jerry.
It's time for us to sing together. I invite you to turn to hymn 437 in the hymn book. And I don't know about you, but I'd like us to stand and sing. What do y'all think about that? Let's do it. If you're able, let's stand and sing together.
You may be seated. Before I offer the prayer of thanksgiving, just to let you know that her family is having a reception in Heritage Hall following the service. Jerry loved a good story. He loved to tell a good story. He loved to hear a good story because he was a master storyteller. And I want to encourage each of you to think of your favorite Jerry story. And at the reception, find somebody and share your story with them, and then listen to their story for you. Let us pray. God of love, we thank you for all with which you have blessed us even to the day, for the gift of joy in days of health and strength, and for the gifts of your abiding presence and promise in the days of pain and grief. We praise you for home and friends, and for our baptism and placed in your church, with all who have faithfully lived and died. Above all else, we thank you for Jesus, who knew our griefs, who died our death, and rose for our sake, and who lives and prays for us. And as he taught us, so now we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. This is one of Jerry's favorite songs. All of them were Jerry's favorite. This little light of mine. Let us stand again for this.
Church, after the blessing and the gift of music, you all, as Pastor Terry said, are invited to come over and have some food and share some stories and greet one another and the family. We do ask that you wait until we escort the family over there to join us at the fellowship, or at the Heritage Hall, for our time of fellowship. Hear this word, church, as we go from this place. Let your light shine. Be alive. Be curious. Share what you know. Most of all, be people of love, like Jerry has been for us. Go from this place and share your light and love so that others might know of Jesus through you, and that we might make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. Amen.